to school is here, and as families get kids back into the swing of things to head to the classroom, the community also takes on renewed responsibility out and about across the local area. Joining us for the ever helpful back-to-school safety tips as we get ready for the fall season is Officer Zena Dailey from the West Bloomfield Police Department. Officer Dailey, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, Tyler.
Yeah, happy to have you on. It's an exciting time of the year. We get our kids back in the classroom. The fall's on its way.
Right.
School's back in session. But that comes with a lot of safety concerns because we've had these kids out and about either at camp or they've been at home all summer. The buses haven't been on the road. It hasn't been as busy necessarily. And now we get the kids back into the swing of things. It impacts everybody's schedule, whether you're a parent or not. So what are some of the most important factors that the community should be considering from a safety standpoint as we get those kids back in the classroom?
Yep, you are right. We're getting back in the swing of things, and that means you're going to start seeing kids walking early in the morning as it gets dark in the morning. You're going to see kids riding their bikes and getting to and from the bus stop. So I guess I'll start with our kids that are walking. If you have young kids, I really urge parents to find a safe walking route that they practice until their child knows that route before school starts. And if possible, sometimes these kids are taking routes and they're taking these walks on their own because their parents have to go into work so early, or they have other obligations going on. But if it's possible, I would say try to find a group, a friend to walk with them. If you don't have a couple of kids in your neighborhood or a couple of streets around you, see what you could do about talking to school about kids that maybe you don't know that well that are in the same school and taking that same route. Try to connect with those parents and get those kids together so they're not walking alone. And then, of course, I would make sure you're teaching them as they're walking home from school, both to and from school, if a car approaches them, how they should respond, and when they get to school or when they get home, to tell a trusted adult, hey, this happened. I want to get as much information from the child and report that so that we're aware of it and we can put something out and also patrol that area a little more than we already are as those kids are walking to and from school. You want to make sure that, I know West Bloomfield has a lot of streets that don't have sidewalks, but if we do have sidewalks on the streets that you're taking, I urge those kids to use the sidewalks as much as possible and take a route that avoids as many intersections as possible. And then you're going to see, along with these walkers, is all the new kids that are driving, the high school kids that are driving to and from school, and sometimes are running late. Parents included, running late to work, running late to get their kids to school, and we're rushing a little bit. We are not paying attention, and we have those walkers and the kids that are riding their bikes to school. So we want to make sure that we are slowing down. We are aware at every stop sign and crosswalk if there are kids that are coming to and from through those crosswalks. And you want to make sure that our new drivers especially are following all the rules of the road so that they are not rushing through any stop signs where kids are crossing or at the bus stop, because sometimes you'll see some of those kids standing too close to the curb waiting for the bus, which leads me to our bus safety. So we have kids that are walking to the bus, again, on their own, and they're a lot of times rushing to get there. They're running late. You want to make sure that you are not running to the bus. That those drivers are aware. They see you. They will wait for you. And a lot of times those kids are telling me, hey, so-and-so is catching up, they'll be here in a second. Don't rush, don't run to the bus, and make sure that bus is stopped before you're actually approaching that door. That driver will open the door, and that is your cue to then get in. And walking up to that door any sooner is not going to help you get in that bus until he or she opens that door. So, and then once you're in the bus, you want to, and I'm sorry, I'm going to back up a little bit before you get in the bus. You want to make sure that while you're waiting there and you're on time, that you are away from that curb. You don't want to stand too close where the bus is going to approach and where cars are still driving through and making turns. Sometimes those turns are a little tight and they're a little too close to the curb. You want to make sure your kids are safe enough and far back. And then once you're in the bus, parents, you want to make sure you're telling your kids to stay seated. If there's seatbelts, let's use those, and keep the volume down so that we're not distracting our drivers. Going back a little bit, Tyler, to our drivers that are actually driving to and from school, when you do see a bus stopped and they have their red lights flashing, their stop sign out, you have to stop. Do not go around that bus. You want to make sure that those kids that are crossing to get onto that bus are not in any danger of getting hit.
And of course, there's so much to consider with age of the kids also. From the elementary
Yeah.
age, middle school, high school kids, there's always some different considerations in there. But there are some similarities. There's some goofing off more with the middle schoolers and the high schoolers at the bus stop or as they're walking home from the bus stop or as they're walking home from school versus the elementary school kids who are just looking for some playtime to fill that dead time between when they get to the bus stop and when the bus actually gets there. So from a parent's side of things, what should they be talking to, especially those younger kids who are going to be at the bus stop? How should that factor in to their training, to their walkthroughs? What to do when you're at the actual bus stop and waiting?
So like I said, that's when you want to make sure you're teaching them, hey, it's okay. I know you guys are waiting. You want to have fun, and that is all okay. But you want to make sure you're doing that away from the curb, as far away from the street as possible. Like I would say walk 6 to 10 steps back away from that curb. That bus driver will see you. You will see when they're approaching, and you are not in danger as you're playing around. Kids get, they're pushing around, they're running around. You're not close. You're not getting close to that curb if you're 10 feet away from it.
Yeah, always good advice, too. And we go back to the high school kids and maybe driving in for the first time. It's not only a factor of them needing to be on time, maybe leave a few minutes earlier, avoid speeding, as you mentioned earlier on, but sometimes they're also going to be carpooling with some of their friends, whether it's to school or after school to other activities. How should that factor into the conversation with parents from a safety standpoint, of what steps they need to be taking to keep themselves focused on the road and eliminate hazards that come from being a new driver and being distracted by friends and other things happening in the vehicle?
Great question. And what you just said is to avoid that distraction, stay off your electronics, pay attention to the road. Again, like I said, in West Bloomfield, we have a lot of streets that don't have sidewalks. And so you have kids that are walking, that are on the road. So you want to make sure you are paying attention and you're driving slow. Give yourself enough time, leave home. And I know that there are times where we just wake up late, but rushing to save that 2-3 minutes will do you no good. You're going to be late regardless. At the very least, you're at least being safe, and you know that you are not putting anyone else, not yourself or anyone else, in danger.
All good advice. There's even more of that on the Facebook page of the West Bloomfield Police Department at West Bloomfield PD. Officer Zena Dailey is joining us on today's edition of the Splash Live. There's also considerations for the rest of the community as well. Parents and kids certainly play a very big role in back-to-school safety. But for those of us that don't have kids, we're not going to and from the schools at all throughout the regular school year, what factors should we be considering as we head back to the school season to make sure we're keeping those kids and those families safe during the school year?
That's when you approach those school zones where the speed limit drops a little bit. You'll see that around all of our schools. So just pay attention when those lights are flashing. There are times that those are restricted for. So I would pay attention to that and slow down, because you have kids crossing the main road. You have West Bloomfield Middle School, you are crossing the main road. Same with the high school. So, and I urge parents to make sure their kids are crossing at the light, at the crosswalks. But there are times where these kids will just cross. And so we, as the drivers, have to be careful. We have to be vigilant and pay attention.
Always a good idea to be doing that, even throughout the rest of the season. When it's not kids running across the road, it's going to be a deer. So, hey, good practice in that school year and school zone anyway. Officer Dailey, before we let you go, any final advice for parents, for kids, and for the community as we focus on back-to-school safety?
Parents, I would have those talks with your kids from elementary to high school. And like I said, it goes from walking and being safe and how to handle what happens if you're approached by another vehicle, that someone that you don't know, a stranger, to the high school kids who are driving. And even if this is your third year driving, you still want to be careful and make sure that you are having that conversation of stay off your electronics, pay attention, and slow down.
We always appreciate the advice from the West Bloomfield Police Department. The community can get even more by calling their non-emergency number or visiting them on Facebook at West Bloomfield PD. Zena, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.